Why don't we talk about Joe Scarborough now?
Yes, so let's switch to another cable news topic here. This is extraordinary. I couldn't even believe when I was reading this piece. So Joe Scarborough, of course, multi-million-dollar cable news host, very wealthy guy, has been in the game for a long time, decided to pen this essay chiding anyone who would have anything critical to say about the United States of America. Let's put this up on the screen. His headline here is, "America is doing just fine. The United States deserves a robust defense." And let me read you a little bit of this because I really enjoyed this. "Uncle Sam deserves a modern-day Atticus Finch to argue his case before the American people, but he doesn't have one. The usual suspects who once regularly delivered garrulous Eric Stratton-style defenses of all things American are now scattered to the winds by the tumult of Trumpism. Neither the Capitol riot nor a barrage of indictments have stopped these hucksters from slavishly siding with Donald Trump and his attacks against the same American institutions that conservatives once defended against enemies real or imagined, whether the dirty hippies who tried to levitate the Pentagon or the commies on the church committee. Trump conservatives really are having their own hippie moment turning against American institutions, because God forbid we critique American institutions. That would be horrifying. The opposing counsel's bench will likewise be unhelpful because it is packed with a motley crew of progressive politicians, left-wing think tankers, and journalists who are far more comfortable prosecuting claims against American greed, U.S. imperialism, and ruling class dominance than mounting muscular defenses of America." Now, I would say I wish that our nation's journalists would do more critiquing of American greed, U.S. imperialism, and ruling class dominance. But God forbid, again, that we have any critique of any of those things instead of just uniformly mounting what he describes as a muscular defense of America. He goes on, Saagar, you have to love this, to talk about, how great things are under Joe Biden and his leadership. And of course, he leans into everything we're doing with the Ukraine war has been great and good, and no mention of cluster bombs and us being complicit in potential war crimes there, none of that. But the one critique that he does have is that the pullout from Afghanistan.
Right, was
now,
bad.
that was the real problem. But don't worry, they've already righted the ship, so no need to complain about that either. And he concludes with this. "Despite the blather that cable news hosts spit at you daily, your country is doing pretty damn well," which is also hilarious because, number one, he's cable news host, right, one of the most prominent cable news hosts in the frickin' country. Number two, if you tune into his network or you tune into CNN, what you will hear over and over and over again is actually how wonderful things are under Joe Biden, how the economy's actually great, how everything's just fine, how his leadership is so brilliant and wonderful, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know what world this man is living in.
I think it's just a real, look, it's not just a blind spot. It's actually that they have to do this justification of where we are in order to prop up the structure of which the vast majority of people are fundamentally against. We know this from every political leader that has been doing well in modern memory. For Obama and Trump and Biden really were all kind of quote change candidates really in their own way from the previous status quo. Nobody was ever voting for keeping actually what we had in place. Second, though, look at any poll like the one we have. We can put just right up here on the screen. There has never been more dissatisfaction with national economic conditions, with faith in American institutions, with a complete lack of faith in overall higher elite institutions like college education. I just saw a poll come across the desk that says that 36%, an all-time low, people approve of colleges. All-time low number of people approve of institutions, which we're going to talk about in a bit. People feel like they're doing worse off than ever, their inability to achieve the American dream. And this is really propaganda that I often see put forward by defenders of the neoliberal establishment who really helped architect it, because they rely always on fake metrics. And this is always the big problem that we see, and we were talking previously, there's a big wonk war right now about whether we're doing well or not. And they always rely on things like what he points in here. It's like, America's universities are best in the world. I'm like, yeah, but what's the overall trend? They're going down. They're not doing well. What is the overall trend right now in terms of American views throughout the rest of the world? I kept telling you, the sea change I saw in Indian attitudes towards America, I'm still flabbergasted by it. When I visited India 10 years ago, people either wanted to move here or they didn't care about America. Now, the overall elite opinion has turned 180. They're like, you guys are a bunch of moralizers. You don't shut up in terms of lecturing us. We are an independent country. You think you could come and tell us what to do, whose oil to buy, and all this? Who do you think we are? We're the most populous nation on earth. You, Joe Biden, and all these other people can screw off. We're going to do whatever we want to do. Hearing the same thing from Brazil, and we know this also from all across the non-Western world. This is the attitude that pervades about the United States and about its overall decline. We're entering a very dangerous period, I think, in geopolitics. And I think that's the problem that he does, is he's trying to cast some sort of Reagan-esque, a view of the United States around both our economy and our place in the world, when we actually see retrenchment everywhere. And the worst thing is that his answer is to triple down on all of the things that brought us exactly where we are. When in that retrenchment, we need both humble and big ideas here at home to get our population to a point where we can be, united and all of that. And also to think about the way that we carry ourselves abroad so that we don't go back into, some horrible state of war and, multipolarity or even more multipolarity from where we are right now. That's I just see like, it's almost like a boomer level of like America, right or wrong. And I always just look at it like, look, I think Americans are awesome, and I think America is doing badly.
Well, it reminds me of it. He probably said some of the same stuff during the Bush era.
Yeah,
the whole
did.
Iraq war, like you can't criticize our leader, blah, blah, blah. It's not patriotic to be critical of the president of the United States, and you need to back Bush no matter what. I mean, that was a big strain of argument, if you could even call it argument, from the right at that time, which again, I'm sure he was partaking in. It is so low IQ to not be able to comprehend that you can be a patriot, you can love this country, you can appreciate many of the core values, you could celebrate some of its best parts of history and the progress that has been made, and you can also look across the landscape and see some real problems. And see some real problems, by the way, with the elite class, Joe Scarborough included. I also feel like, can you imagine him writing this during the Trump era?
No, yeah,
If
exactly.
Donald Trump was president, can you imagine him being like, how dare you criticize America? This is it needs a muscular defense, and actually everything is going really great. I mean, this is just complete 100% partisan blinders, where it's like, since my guy's in charge, everything's fine, and everyone needs to shut up and get on board.
Really, honestly, all the same fundamentals that he points to were the exact same under Trump. I mean, if you're like, hey, our universities are the best in the world, okay, I mean, it's been that way for 40 years. It's like, it hasn't changed really all that much. And I think what he gets to is this attitudinal thing, of which I believe was the best thing about Trump. I think Trump was the most honest person in a generation of politics when he said, our American carnage is over. I believe that the American carnage speech is still one of the most important ones ever delivered, because for the very first time, somebody was like, you know what? Things aren't all that rosy.
Yeah.
And that's what people wanted to hear.
You know what's funny is, so I'm covering my monologue today, the interview that Obama did with Hassan Minhaj, which was mostly just like, the questions were mostly very fluffy. But he did have this one question that I really liked, and that spoke to something that I've been trying to put my finger on for a while, which is he basically begged Obama to, for once in his life, be emotionally honest. Because he has this whole thing of being like so removed and, so detached from all of it. And what he argued is, Trump in particular, but a lot of Republicans, they lie and misstate a lot of things, but there's a level of emotional honesty that people respond to, whereas Democrats, progressives, whatever, they may be right on the facts, but there's like a level of emotional dishonesty. And I think that this article is fits really well in that mold. You can't just gloss over everything. You can't pretend like it's unpatriotic and throw out like you're a dirty hippie. If you dare criticize American greed or imperialism or ruling class dominance, as he puts it. So it's also very easy to say when, you are doing just fine, your bank account is full, you have no financial woes or worries, in the world. Your children, same deal. Very easy to have this view from the station that Joe Scarborough finds himself in.
And that's just not what people, even if you listen to Joe Biden, I mean, he's not making his pitch based on, the economy is great. They will say some of that.
Yeah.
But at the core, it's, we are going to fight against these Republicans who are nuts. That's the only reason that they're trying to get people, really, I mean, and let's look at the midterms too. What's the number one reason why Dems came out? it ain't the economy, it's abortion.
Yeah.
It is a negative reason. Negativity and the influence of that for voting is not even an indicator of the positive view that Scarborough puts forward.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.